In the town of Briarglen, the forest road was the fastest way home. During the day, it looked completely normal. A narrow strip of asphalt cutting through miles of tall pine trees. Sunlight filtered through the branches, birds nested in the trees, and occasionally hikers walked along the edges of the road. But at night, the forest felt different. The trees seemed taller. The shadows stretched further across the road, and the silence between the trees felt deeper than it should. Most people in Briarglen avoided that road after midnight, not because anything had happened, just because it didn't feel right. Ethan Cole drove that road almost every night. He worked late shifts at a warehouse on the edge of town, and his shift usually ended around 12:30 a.m. The forest road cut 20 minutes off his drive home. So he used it every night. Nothing unusual had ever happened until one Thursday in early October. The weather had suddenly turned cold, and a thin fog had begun to form between the trees. Ethan's headlights cut through the mist as he drove along the empty road. The radio played quietly in the background. Everything felt normal. Routine. Then Ethan noticed something strange ahead. He slowed down slightly. His headlights illuminated a narrow road branching off from the main highway. A dirt road. Ethan frowned. That's weird, he muttered. He had driven this road hundreds of times, maybe even 1,000, and he was certain of one thing. The road had never been there before. He slowed the car almost to a stop. The dirt path disappeared into the forest between two large trees. A small wooden sign stood beside it. The sign looked old, very old. The letters were faded and difficult to read. Ethan leaned closer toward the windshield. For a moment he thought he couldn't read it. Then the headlights caught the letters clearly. The sign said, North Hollow Road. Ethan tried to remember. North Hollow. The name sounded unfamiliar. He knew most of the roads around Briarglen, but he had never heard of North Hollow Road before. The fog drifted slowly across the entrance to the dirt road. The trees beyond it looked darker. Thicker. Almost like the forest was hiding something inside. Ethan checked the time on the dashboard. 12:46. Ma'am. He hesitated. Then he shrugged. Probably just a service road, he said to himself. Maybe it had been built recently. Maybe he had simply never noticed it before. He turned the steering wheel. And slowly drove onto the dirt road. The moment his car left the asphalt, something felt different. The tires rolled softly over the dirt. The fog became thicker, and the forest suddenly felt much quieter. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror. The main road was already disappearing behind him, hidden by the fog. Hidden by the trees. He looked ahead again. The dirt road stretched forward into darkness, perfectly straight. Too straight. No curves. No turns. Just a long, narrow path disappearing into the forest. After about 30 seconds of driving, Ethan reached for his phone. He opened the map app. The screen loaded for a moment, and something strange happened. The map disappeared. A small message appeared instead. Nitrogen monoxide oxygen. Ethan frowned. That's strange. There was usually at least some signal along the forest road. But now the phone showed nothing. No service. No GPS. Nothing at all. He placed the phone back on the seat. The car continued slowly along the dirt road. The headlights illuminated the path ahead. Tall grass grew along the edges. Branches hung low above the road. Then, Ethan noticed something that made him uneasy. He looked more closely at the ground in front of the car. At the dirt covering the road. There were no tire tracks. None. Not even old ones. The surface of the dirt looked smooth. Undisturbed. Like no car had ever driven there before. Ethan slowly lifted his foot from the gas pedal. The car slowed. The engine hummed quietly. Then something appeared in the distance. At the edge of the headlights, a shape, standing in the middle of the road. Ethan leaned forward. His heart started beating faster. The fog moved slowly around the figure. At first it looked like a shadow, Then it became clearer. A person, standing perfectly still, facing the car. And as Ethan's headlights reached them, the person didn't move. Ethan pressed the brake slowly. The car rolled to a stop a few meters from the figure, standing in the middle of the road. The headlights cut through the fog and illuminated the person clearly now. It was a man, tall and thin. He wore a long, dark coat that moved slightly in the cold night air. The man's face looked pale in the headlights, but he didn't look surprised. He didn't shield his eyes from the light. He didn't move at all. Ethan leaned closer to the steering wheel. "What is he doing out here?" he whispered. There were no houses in this part of the forest. No cabins. No farms. Nothing. Just trees and darkness. For miles. Ethan tapped the horn once. A short, sharp sound echoed through the trees. The man didn't react. Not even a little. He simply stood there, watching the car. Ethan felt a small wave of unease move through him. He rolled down the window slightly. Cold air drifted into the car. "Hey," Ethan called. "Are you okay?" No answer. The man remained perfectly still. The fog moved slowly around him. For a moment, Ethan thought the man might not have heard him. So he tried again. "Hey," he shouted louder. "Do you need help?" Still nothing. Ethan checked the road behind him. The fog had swallowed the path he came from. The forest looked like a wall of darkness. There was no sign of the main road anymore. He turned back to the figure. The man was still standing there, silent, watching. Ethan slowly released the brake and allowed the car to roll forward a few meters. The headlights became brighter on the man's face. Finally, after a long moment, the man stepped aside, but he didn't move quickly. He stepped off the road slowly, almost reluctantly, like he had been waiting for Ethan to come closer. Ethan drove past him. As the car passed, Ethan glanced out the side window. The man's face was clearer now. His skin looked pale. His eyes looked tired, very tired. But the strangest thing was his expression. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He simply looked resigned. For a moment their eyes met. Then Ethan drove past him. The man remained standing beside the road, watching the car disappear into the fog. Ethan looked into the rearview mirror. The figure stood in the middle of the road again, exactly where he had been before. Just standing there. Watching. Double quotes. "Okay," Ethan muttered nervously. That was weird. He pressed the gas pedal slightly. The car continued deeper into the forest. The road remained perfectly straight. No curves. No intersections. Just a narrow path cutting through endless trees. After a few minutes, Ethan noticed something else strange. The fog wasn't thinning. If anything, it was becoming thicker. The headlights struggled to reach more than 20 meters ahead. He checked the clock on the Fiskade dashboard. 12:52 a.m. He had been driving for about 6 minutes. But something didn't feel right. The road should have ended by now. Even a short forest road would eventually connect to another path. But this one just kept going. Ethan frowned. "Maybe it loops around," he said quietly. But even as he said it, he knew something was wrong. Because the forest looked older now. The trees were larger, their trunks thicker, their branches twisted together, high above the road. Then something appeared ahead. A faint yellow glow through the fog. Ethan slowed down. Lights. Warm lights. As the car moved closer, the shape of a building slowly appeared. An old gas station, standing alone beside the road. The building looked extremely old. The paint on the walls had peeled away long ago. The sign above the roof hung crooked. One of the letters was missing, but the lights were on. Ethan stared at it in disbelief. He had driven through this forest countless times, and he had never seen this place before. He pulled into the small gravel lot. The car engine hummed quietly. The fog drifted slowly across the ground. For a moment, Ethan just sat there, looking at the strange building. Something about it felt wrong. like it didn't belong there. Then he noticed something else. The gas pumps looked ancient. The design was decades old, maybe from the 1970s. And yet, the lights inside the building were glowing warmly, like someone was still working there. Ethan stepped out of the car. The cold air hit his face immediately. The forest around the station was silent, completely silent. He walked toward the front door. The wooden boards of the porch creaked under his feet. The glass door looked dusty, but through it, he could see the inside of the station. Old shelves, small counter, a flickering light above it. And behind the counter, someone was standing there, watching him. Waiting. Ethan stopped at the door of the gas station. For a moment, he just stood there, looking through the dusty glass. The person behind the counter hadn't moved. He was watching Ethan. Waiting. Ethan pushed the door open. A small bell above it rang softly. The sound echoed through the quiet building. Inside, the air smelled like old wood and dust. The shelves were half empty. A few faded cans and bottles sat in neat rows, as if someone had arranged them many years ago and never touched them again. The lights above flickered slightly. The man behind the counter looked old. Very old. His gray hair was neatly combed back, and he wore a faded gas station uniform with a small name patch. The patch was difficult to read, but Ethan thought it said Walter. The man looked at Ethan calmly. Not surprised. Not confused. Just calm, like he had seen many people walk through that door before. "You're driving late tonight," the old man said. His voice was quiet and slow. Ethan nodded. Double quotes. "Yeah, I was heading home." The man studied him for a moment. Then he said something strange. "Most people don't come this way." Ethan glanced back toward the door. "Honestly, I didn't even know this road existed." The old man nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "That's usually how people find it." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" The man rested his hands on the counter. "That road," he said, "doesn't show itself very often." Ethan laughed slightly. "You mean the dirt road outside?" "Yes." The old man looked toward the window. The fog outside drifted slowly across the empty parking lot. "It appears only at certain times." Ethan crossed his arms. "That doesn't make any sense." The old man shrugged. "The forest doesn't need to make sense." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The station. Lights buzzed softly overhead. Ethan looked around the small building. Again, something about it bothered him. Then, he realized what it was. There were no modern things. Anywhere. No car machine. No modern drinks. No phone. Everything looked like it belonged decades ago. "How long has this place been here?" Ethan asked. The old man thought for a moment. "A long time." "How long?" "Long enough." Ethan felt a chill run through him. He looked toward the door again. "I think I'll just head back to the main road." The old man's expression changed. Slightly. Not fear. Not surprise. Just concern. "You should," he said quietly. "But you should do it soon." Ethan frowned. "Why?" The old man looked toward the road outside again. The fog had grown thicker, much thicker. "Because the longer you stay here," the man said, "the further the road takes you." Ethan stared at him. "That's not possible." The old man didn't argue. He simply nodded toward the door. "You passed someone on the road, didn't you?" Ethan froze. "How did you know that?" The old man sighed quietly. "They always appear first." "Who?" "The watchers." Ethan felt the same uneasy feeling return to his stomach. "The guy standing in the road?" "Yes. What do they want?" The old man looked at Ethan carefully. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he said something that made the room feel colder. "They're waiting," he said, "to see how far you'll go. Outside." The fog shifted slowly. And somewhere deep in the forest, Ethan thought he heard footsteps on the road. Ethan didn't like the way the old man said that. They're waiting. The words echoed in his mind as he stood inside the dim gas station. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The light above the counter buzzed softly. Outside, the fog moved slowly across the empty road. Ethan finally shook his head. Okay, I think I've stayed here long enough. The old man nodded. That would be wise. Ethan turned and walked toward the door. The bell above it rang again as he stepped outside. The cold night air felt heavier now. Thicker. The fog had grown much denser while he was inside. His car was still parked where he left it, but the forest around the station looked darker. Now, almost like the trees had moved closer. Ethan opened the car door and got inside quickly. He started the engine. The headlights cut through the fog, lighting the road ahead. The dirt road stretched forward into the forest, perfectly straight. Endless. Ethan turned the wheel. He planned to drive back the way he came, back toward the main road, back toward town. But when the car turned around and the headlights pointed in the opposite direction, Ethan froze. The road behind him looked different. Very different. The gas station disappeared quickly in the fog as Ethan drove. Within seconds it was gone. Completely gone. Like it had never been there. Ethan drove for 2 minutes, then 5. Then 10. The road continued straight through the forest. No turns. No intersections. Nothing. This isn't right, he whispered. Road should have ended by now. He should have reached the main highway already. But the forest looked unfamiliar. The trees looked older. Taller. The fog thicker. Then Ethan saw something that made his stomach tighten. Footprints. In the dirt road. They hadn't been there before. He was sure of it. The footprints ran along the center of the road. Long, slow steps, like someone had been walking there for a very long time. Ethan slowed the car. The headlights followed the trail of footprints. Ahead, they stretched deep into the fog. Then he noticed something worse. The footprints were not going away from him. They were coming toward him. Someone had been walking toward the car, toward the gas station, toward him. Ethan gripped the steering wheel. His heart was beating faster now. He looked ahead. Carefully, the fog moved slowly across the road. Then, he saw it, a shape, standing far ahead. In the middle of the road. Another person, standing perfectly still, just like the first one. Ethan whispered quietly, "No," because now he realized something terrifying. The man he passed earlier had been standing behind him, on the road he had already driven. But this one was standing ahead of him, and as the headlights reached the figure, it slowly lifted its head and began walking toward the car. The figure kept walking. Slowly. Step by step along the center of the dirt road. Ethan felt his hands tighten around the steering wheel. The headlights illuminated the fog, and the shape became clearer. Another man. Tall. Wearing a dark coat, just like the one Ethan had passed earlier. The man walked calmly toward the car, not rushing, not threatening, just walking, like he had all the time in the world. Ethan pressed the brake. The car stopped. For a moment he thought about turning around again, but something inside him told him that wouldn't help. The road had already changed once. There was no guarantee it wouldn't change again. The man stopped about 10 meters in front of the car. He stood still in the headlights, looking directly at Ethan. Ethan rolled down the window slightly. The cold air filled the car again. "Who are you?" Ethan asked. The man didn't answer. Immediately, he simply looked at the road behind. Ethan, then back at the car. You came through the station. The man finally said. His voice sounded calm. Almost tired. Ethan frowned. What is this place? The man took one slow step closer. This road, he said, isn't meant to be traveled very far. Ethan felt a chill run through him. What happens if someone keeps driving? The man looked down the endless road. Then he answered, quietly, the road keeps going. Ethan shook his head. That doesn't make sense. The man shrugged slightly. Most people turn around before they understand. Ethan thought about the gas station. The old man behind the counter. The watchers standing in the road. Who are you? Ethan asked again. The man pointed gently toward the forest. People who went too far. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. You mean drivers? The man nodded once. Some came years ago, he said. Some came decades ago. Ethan stared at him. But you're still here. Yes. Why? The man looked at the road again. At the endless darkness stretching through the forest. We wait, he said. For what? The man finally looked directly into Ethan's eyes. For the road to appear again. Ethan didn't understand. Why would you want that? The man's expression was calm, but his eyes looked heavy, like he had been standing on that road for a very long time. Because sometimes, he said quietly, someone turns around in time. Ethan swallowed. And if they don't? The man looked down the road one last time. Then, he said something that made Ethan's chest tighten. Then the road keeps them. The forest became silent again. The fog drifted slowly across the headlights. For several seconds, no one spoke. Finally, the man stepped aside, moving off the road. Just like the first watcher had done earlier. You should go back, he sighed. Now, Ethan didn't argue. He slowly turned the car around. Again, this time he drove faster. The headlights cut through the fog as the car sped along the dirt road. 2 minutes passed, then 5. Then, suddenly, the fog thinned. The trees opened, and the asphalt road appeared ahead. The main highway. Ethan drove onto it. Immediately, he didn't stop. He didn't look back. He just kept driving until the forest disappeared behind him. The next morning, Ethan returned to that spot. Just to be sure. Just to prove to himself that the road had been real. But when he arrived, there was nothing there. No dirt road. No sign. No gas station. Just a normal forest road he had driven for years. The place where the road had appeared was empty, like it had never existed. But sometimes, late at night, drivers passing through that forest swear they see something strange. A cold, narrow road between the trees, a faded wooden sign, and footprints in the dirt, leading deeper into the forest.